Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us and spending a little time on Saturday with us. I appreciate everyone that's joined us. Thank you to our wonderful guests that we have. So far, we have Sam and Gina and Jordan here, all at various colleges. We're going to introduce them here shortly and have them tell us a little bit about themselves. Jesse, it's good to see you as well, always. Um, so we appreciate everyone. Oh, there's Gabe. Let me get him added real quick.
Hi.
What's up, Gabe?
Nothing much. Sorry about the late join in.
You're not late, man. There's no such thing during a pandemic. All is well. So anyway, I appreciate everyone that's joining us right now and with us. And so, you know, our tagline for our company is we cultivate mental wellness to maximize human capital and promote safety. And so part of this is Jesse and I have been digging into our specific tracks that we want to go after, and schools is one of the big ones. So hospitals, healthcare systems, schools, both K through 12 and college, university level. And then the private sector, which encompasses quite a bit, and then obviously law enforcement, first responders. And so we want to do these videos specific to one of those four tracks that we are really trying to work within. And so we appreciate having these four college students share their experiences with us, and we're going to kind of dive in and just have some dialogue with them. Jesse, do you want to go ahead and jump us off?
Absolutely. So thanks for being here. Thanks for joining us if you're watching. And as usual, if you have any questions for them or anything you want to bring up and discuss, just put it in the comments, and then Joe will put it on the screen, and then we can go from there. Like Joe mentioned, we cover all things mental health from all perspectives, and we know that all of these areas have individuals from across the spectrum that need this information. So we appreciate you guys joining us to talk about this. So what I'd like to do, if at all possible, is to just go around and hear about you. Your name, where you're from, where you go to school, maybe what your major is, and we'll start there. So anybody that wants to start can go ahead.
Hi, I'm Gabe. I'm 19 years old. I'm about to turn 20 soon, and I'm an advertising major at Boston University.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us.
Hello.
About Jordan.
I'm Jordan. I'm 20 and I live in Westchester, New York. And I am a dance major at the University of Vermont.
Very cool.
Hello, I'm 20. My name's Sam. I'm from Guilford, Connecticut, and I'm a sophomore secondary education and anthropology major at St. Michael's College, right outside of Burlington, Vermont.
I love it, Sam. I actually, so I've never been, but I feel like I know somebody from Guilford, Connecticut. It's
You
pretty
might.
fascinating. Yeah, I might. Love it. Love it. Thank you, brother.
There's Gina.
We're trying to leave, Gina.
I had a little bit of a mental breakdown there for a second.
Gina, where are you from? Where do you go to school at? What's your major?
I am from Scranton-ish, Pennsylvania. I go to Lafayette College in Easton, PA, and I'm an English and philosophy double major.
Very cool. So we have a really good representation of people from kind of around the country and different perspectives as well. Now, this particular series that Joe and I are doing, series-like anyway, has been constantly or consistently around the theme of dealing with this pandemic. And we know that college students have been affected dramatically by this, just like everyone has, but each in various particular ways. So what I'd like to do now is, now that we know who you are, we'd like to hear about how this has kind of affected you personally, both in your academic experience and then in your lives, if you don't mind sharing.
For me, it's just like mainly made it harder to do everything, basically. Like, it's harder to get in contact with my teachers and like effectively do like the work that I have to do. And I would say that's like the biggest challenge so far.
And Sam, because of the change or shift in how we're approaching school right now, has the workload significantly decreased to where they've made it much easier on you, or no?
In one class it has, but not in my other classes. So like it definitely helps where like they do want to help, but like they're like, oh well, you just have all this free time, so like we're still just going to give you the same amount of work. But yeah, so sometimes.
Okay.
Sorry, go ahead.
Go for it.
I think that my workload has increased because I have a lot of professors who will send like emails and add additional reading with the justification that you don't have anything else to do. So here's an extra Supreme Court case to read by class on Monday. So I actually feel like I'm doing work more often at home than I did at school.
I imagine even as a dance student, you're probably taking a wide array of classes, right?
Yeah. The interesting thing is that I do agree that there's like this level of increase in like the workload, but also some of my professors have tried to extend a lot of deadlines, so there's like a bit more leeway in a lot of areas. But that being said, certain classes just don't translate well to online learning, and especially being a dance major, there are definitely certain classes that just have not translated well at all. And I think for me, like what that did is just like I lost like most of my motivation for like any dance class I was in, because now that it feels so disconnected from the way that it used to be, I just like have no motivation to keep like up with this class.
So your college experience was dramatically changed, and even affected your motivation level and your passion for things, right? I mean,
Yeah.
You had this idea. So I guess I should have asked also, I missed this, is what year are all of you?
I'm a sophomore.
Okay. So you've been there a little while. What about the rest of you?
I think we're all sophomores.
Okay, cool. Perfect. And I know you didn't get a chance to speak, so go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say like at least for me, I'm a guy that's very rhythm based in terms of like if once I get into like a flow, I can do stuff really well. Like back at school, I had my routine and I stuck to that and I do well. But like all of a sudden, because of the pandemic, my whole routine got thrown off. Like it wasn't, like go to the dining hall, study, go to like class, which I did really well in like a structured schedule. It was now all of a sudden like you're at home, you can't leave home, and you have all this free time, and that really threw me off personally, at least, and made it harder for me to do well in these classes. And my body just had to adjust to this whole different thing. So that was really hard for me.
Yeah, no, it's a great point, Gabe. And I say this with a ton of respect to everybody listening, but one of the things I heard just this morning, I was attending this virtual conference, and she said, it's not that I know for some people it's very different, but it's not that what most of us are going through is hard. It's just super inconvenient. And it's not like none of us are capable of making these adjustments. It's not like we're not capable of homeschooling, changing the way we kind of see and perceive and operate, but it's super inconvenient. And that's the part that's kind of frustrating and creating a little bit of internal chaos and turmoil is, I do have all this, at least the optics are, I have a lot of free time, but really I still have this obligation and responsibility to do all this work. And now that I'm back, I imagine everyone's back home with parents or family. And so now they're having to adjust of having their adult children back home, which some of them probably love. Some of them are like, good Lord, get out of here. And so, no, I love hearing your perspective, and I appreciate Jordan talking about the shift in motivation, because I'm telling you, I'm the same way. I have to be involved with a group or engaged with, that in-person experience, because I feed a lot off of energy and community. And so when you're suddenly isolated, it becomes much more difficult to keep up that same level of motivation.
Yeah, Joe and I have also kind of had to transition because of this, right? We used to give these, keynotes or talks or trainings and classes on in public, and we have to do it this way. And what I'm reminded of, and I know my college experience was different because I went to college in life much later, but there is something to be said about having that relationship in the classroom, the relationships you forge, you depend on each other, and you learn from each other, right? How have you managed that, or what's different? Is that still happening, or especially if you're in your own home? How about you, Gina?
So I think that what you would think is that because you have more time, even though you're not physically with other people, that you would be able to connect with people more. But I feel like I have friends who are home, also friends from high school, who I'll talk to for the first time in weeks, and will sort of say I haven't been talking to anyone. I've been talking to 2 people and that's kind of it. And I'm I'm the same way. I talk to maybe 5 people regularly, and for the vast majority, it's my friends from school who I would be seeing right now, not necessarily so much my friends from home. So I feel like there's even a lack of motivation, at least maybe this is just personally, but even to necessarily reach out to people who I would be seeing under normal circumstances if we were all home at the same time.
Wow. So you are still kind of leveraging these relationships, but kind of on a smaller dynamic. So that's definitely been affected. Anyone else?
I definitely agree with that. I'm having a similar experience where I do have a bunch of free time, but I have a lot of schoolwork and I have projects and finals and things. And so when I would be seeing my friends at school, I'm not allowed to go out or do anything because I'm stuck at home, and I'm spending my whole day on my computer or on my phone and things. And so I just want to relax. I don't really want to be on my phone. And I feel that has a huge impact on talking to people, because I'm just busy throughout the day again, doing schoolwork. And then when I get to relax, I don't want to be on my phone anymore or on just a screen in general. So I'm not talking to friends as much as I would be in normal circumstances.
Yeah. And I think, Sam, you're not alone with that experience for sure. I think and we talked about this in our last episode, is, because this was such a new experience for everybody and there's so much information being pushed out, some of it thought out, some of it probably not so well. And even the term social distancing really created this weird dynamic of what does this mean? And because we're socially distancing, that means shutting ourselves in our houses and not reaching out and not doing anything. And so we talked about how it probably should have been titled physical distancing. That way it really sends a literal message of keep physical space, but we still need social connection. One of the problems is that, to your point, if you're having to now do all of your schoolwork online, everything's through Zoom or through different platforms, Google Classrooms, whatever it is, most of your time is spent on technology. So then to turn to that, to reach out to other people is exhausting. And so we tend to, or we could possibly become more isolated than normal. And so specific to that point, I would like to ask if anyone's willing to share from a pure mental health standpoint, if anyone has experienced any level of, not diagnosed, but just some depression or anxiety surrounding all of this for the last 8 weeks, I guess.
I definitely think some level of depression has been setting in. There's it was very, the way that I found out that we were going to switch to remote learning was I was already on spring break. I was already home, and we were planning on okay, how do we get you back to Vermont? So I was already home for a solid week, and then I had to hear that I was just going to be home for who knows how long after that. And then like different events that I was planning on going to were getting canceled, and everything was just kind of like spiraling all at once. And I feel like I've learned to become more comfortable with this whole situation. But definitely, you know, like towards the beginning of this whole process, it was a lot harder to kind of like grasp like what exactly was going on and how that was affecting me.
Yeah, because change creates discomfort, right? So, I mean, that's a part of it for sure. And it's great that you have the insight that you have to notice, one, that there was a pretty significant change and now things seem to be smoothing out. But, you know, in the spirit of finding the benefits of remaining present, also we have to think about the next wave of this, or the next phase of this is then going to be retransitioning back into when things, I wouldn't say go back to normal, but as we're still continuing to create what is going to be our new normal. So you have good insight. Anyone else want to talk about their mental health component?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I get really sad when I feel isolated or alone. I found like I tend to, you know, not do well. I really do like being around like friends, whether it's like at school or at home. So I've just found that this has been hard for me, but at the same time, I'm really grateful for technology like Zoom and FaceTime. Like I've been talking to Sam and Jordan a lot. Like we've been buddies since we were 13 years old. So, you know, I'm really grateful that I can still, there's like platforms where I can still talk to them. It's not the same as seeing, you know, my friends in person, but I have noticed like if it weren't for Zoom or FaceTime and stuff like that, I think I'd be more, you know, sad or feel more depressed than I am right now.
It's interesting you say that. So first, I want to address, you know, something Jordan brought up and then what you brought up, Gabe, is so Joe and I talk about this, and I think we even talked about when we first did the first episode of this, and that's people are mourning different things. So Jordan, you were experiencing various losses. You all were, right? The way you went to school, Gabe, you lost that contact with your friends, and you guys have each had to like kind of figure your way out of this. And I want you guys to be aware that it's common whenever you're feeling sad or depressed. Not that you guys have depression, but it is common to have situational depressive symptoms during something like this, and you don't want to be around anybody, or you miss people, or you're just sad in general. But what I found interesting, Gabe, is you used the word grateful, right? So gratitude is a super important thing to building resiliency. Holding on to something that you can be thankful for and grateful for and focusing on that. So you mentioned it, right, Gabe? We have technology, you have ways to connect with people, and that's what Joe and I are all about. So I believe that you're a solid dude for even thinking that way and believing that, because that's something you have to do. Just find the gratitude in the things, whatever they are, and you'll still be able to maintain relationships. So now I can put together the pieces though that you guys are all connected. No, I didn't know that before. I got you now.
I think a lot of like, at least for me, like this feels like very lonely. Mostly because my parents are both high school teachers, so they're in Zoom class all day long. My dad goes to my grandma's house. My mom like sits at the kitchen table, and my sister's also a college student, so we're all kind of in class all day long. So I'll see like Snapchats of my friends, and they'll be like baking with their mom, and I'm like, it's like 5 p.m. and I haven't like spoken to my mom yet today, just because like we've all been in class all day, like not talking to each other. And like I know that some people like kind of like when they're in like very social contexts get like drained by that after a while. I'm sort of the kind of person who would be around people like all day every day and kind of be fine with that. So to not like talk to like another human in person for like hours every day, like it makes you feel like lonely, even though like you might be like seeing your friends in Zoom class, but like it's not the same as like walking into my sister's room and talking to her.
No, it's a great point. And I just want to say, because I've obviously never met any of you, and I'm very early. I don't know. We've been on this call for about 18, 19 minutes. I'm super impressed, not only with your ability to, again, have that awareness and insight into yourself and what's happening, but your ability to articulate it. I think it really kind of sets you apart from the average, if you will. But I'm curious about if you can think back, or because so Gabe, Sam, and Jordan have been friends since 13. Is it safe to assume that you all went to the same school growing up, or you just have family connections?
We all went to summer camp together and we still do.
Okay. So summer camp. All right. So I hear a lot about this summer camp. I love it. So you've been connected since 13. Go to your specific schools, whatever school you went to, grade school. And do you feel that anything in that curriculum or any time that you spent in school prepared you for what you're experiencing right now? Now, granted, real quick caveat to this question, the pandemic has affected everybody, right? And so I don't think anyone was fully prepared for this. So this isn't like a gotcha or a setup question. It's just, I'm curious from 2 points. One, the transition from high school into college and the preparation for that, as far as being away from home, being alone, and your ability to mentally handle all of that. And then now with this new challenge of the pandemic, how well prepared you felt for that. And anyone can jump on.
I think it's funny that you actually say that, because I felt like I was a little underprepared going into college, leaving home. At first, I really struggled my freshman year of school. I really missed, my camp friends, my friends from home. Like I wasn't really thriving and doing my best. And then I felt like this year I actually kind of started to hit my stride, and I started to really, like I said, I'm a rhythm-based guy. And then I started to really, find friends and, be a part of groups and like do well academically. And I felt like I was really hitting my stride. And then this happened. And so I felt like I was all of a sudden reset to zero again, in like thrust back to a point of like uncertainty. So it was funny. I felt like I was underprepared. Then I started to get my footing, and then the rug was just yanked out from underneath me. So that's something I've really been struggling with. Just really terrible timing.
Gabe, before we get on, Joe and I sometimes will talk and kind of plan for things and maybe something about things to discuss. And something that kept coming up for me, both on a personal basis and because of the circle I'm in, something I've seen is there are people that have struggled either throughout their whole lives or in recently. And I know there were people that were just starting to figure things out, right? You mentioned you were having struggled your freshman year, and I know people that are starting to figure things out with their mental health or their fitness or wellness, whatever. And they were just going in the right direction. They were just putting things together. They were maybe managing their anxiety better. Maybe they joined a run group, or, they were watching their habits, whatever it is their case, right? You excelling academically, finding a new hobby, kind of figuring things out. And then this thing comes, and you said the words, pull the rug out from under you. So I think that's going to resonate with a lot of people. And to Joe's point, I guess you guys would all be what, Generation Zers, right? Probably. This is just talking about what, stereotypes would be. You guys are impressive. Your insight and your awareness and your ability to communicate is what, I guess break those social norms or stereotypes, if you will. So I appreciate it. What about you, Sam?
For me, like, I feel like I was well prepared to go to college. I was really excited to leave my house. I have like 3 siblings, and like my parents, and it's just always chaotic. So I was very excited to like get out and just like be on my own. And then like I really like found like a good like group and like a good like place where I do belong at school. So like that's great. And like I want to spend like as much time there as possible. And then I was just like brought back home with like no warning. Basically, they were just like, yeah, when you go home for spring break, just like take all your clothes with you because you're not coming back. I was like, okay, cool, like fun. But so like that, I was not prepared for that. But like my previous schooling, I don't think like there's a way that you can prepare like for something like this. Like you can say that like 100 years ago, like something similar happened and like there was a really bad disease and a lot of people died, but like that is like so separate from like what we see in like our society today that like nothing that couldn't happen today. Like when we had other diseases like Ebola, like it was a problem where it was, but it wasn't coming here. And now that something has come here, like nobody knows really like what to do. And like nobody knows like how to react or how long this is going to last. So like I feel like it's kind of impossible to be prepared for something like this.
Yeah, it's kind of forced us to be vulnerable, right? I mean, to your point is, and Jesse's talked about this, but when this was something that was over in China or in Italy, and it was like, oh, that's terrible for them. Okay. And then we start hearing about cases in the United States and we're like, oh, it's in the US. And then you hear cases in your state and you're like, oh boy. And then your county and your city, and then you're like, good Lord. And then that's where that the anxiety really starts kind of squeezing you and making you realize how real this is. And I know all of you are up in the Northeast and you guys are getting decimated in that area. It's just so different, even contextually within the US, because I'll tell you, we're very fortunate for whatever reason. I don't know why, because, being in Bear County, there's almost 2 million people here. And so we are very populated, but we're also still pretty spread out. And I know that the Northeast, a lot of especially in the city areas, it's very congested. But we just have not had the same amount of cases down here. And it just hasn't been the same level of, like, in fact, yesterday, everything's just opening back up. I mean, at 25% capacity, but we're back up and running. People are out losing their minds, going to all the lakes, the beaches. And it's not that way where you guys are at, because again, there's still a lot of fear and kind of terror just circulating around this what if and the unknowns. And so, it's fascinating when we kind of think about it through that context. So we have our first question, thanks to the one and only. So this is a good question to kind of tap into for all of you or anyone that wants to take it. But let's imagine if, right, what you will do if there's no school in the fall. So if classes don't resume as normally scheduled after summer break, have you thought about that? Have you prepared for that at all mentally? Is anyone thinking about it, or are we assuming that everything's going to go back to normal by the fall?
So for me, like I'm a secondary education teacher. Like I want to be like, or major, and I want to be like a high school teacher. And a lot of like my, like the work that I have to do is like in the classroom, like in like a school, like in the community. So like not being in school or like not being there in person in the fall would like dramatically change the learning that I have to do. Cause it's already been very different for this semester. Like, I was supposed to visit like 10 schools. I only got to visit like 4, and I was supposed to like do a bunch of different things and be a tutor for like an English language learner. And like all of that had to stop, obviously. So like if that continues into like the next semester, I'm not just sure about like what my school is going to be able to do like for the people in my major. Like, cause there's also like student teachers and like a bunch of other things like that have to like happen. And like, if that can't happen, I just don't know what's going to happen. But yeah.
That brings up something for me, right? I wonder how many things are going to be domino affected by this. Like you are a future educator of America. All of you have your future professions in some way. And while I know that this is challenging and it's going to take some type of innovation and ingenuity to fully commit and finish what you guys are all trying to learn. But I will offer this. I wouldn't discount you, because I think what's more valuable than anything is your willingness and passion to do. You can hear it, like you want to be an educator, and you guys all share your passions for your individual feels and wants. And I don't want this to be total doom and gloom for you, thinking that this is it, like everything's screwed. Like, what am I going to do now? Because those are important questions, but I think your abilities collectively and individually to solve these problems with your universities or colleges, excuse me, you're going to succeed. And I think you'll take these experiences and enhance your professionalism with it somehow. But that's a genuine concern, and I can see why that would be a problem. What about you, Gina?
So I've had I'm on student government, and through that I've had interactions pretty frequently with administrators, like our advisors and administrators, so on Zoom calls, and we've kind of been peppering her because she's been in all the meetings with like administration making decisions for Lafayette. And the one thing that she told us is that the college is going to do everything that it possibly can to have us go back because they want to avoid having to get accredited as an online university, which from my understanding is expensive and just like a giant hassle. But what she implied to us was that if it's not possible or safe for students to be on campus in the fall, that the entire college might take a semester off. So that would kind of be because they don't want to start first year students online. They want them to have like their first year, first semester experience, and for everyone else. And especially because I think that they fear losing a ton of students, because I have a couple of friends who have already said if we're online in the fall that they'd go online to community college because it's not worth paying a tuition when you are getting an education that's not like what you signed up for. If like the college doesn't take a semester off but does go online in the fall, I would stay, but I'm like lucky enough that I have like a like financial aid package kind of that allows me to do that. But I understand that like I'm blessed in that regard, and not everyone has like the circumstances that would allow them to do that. So I understand why I would have a lot of friends who would say that they're not going, that they would transfer if we were online again.
What about you, Jordan? I'm curious, man, since you're like in the arts.
Yeah. Especially because, you know, I've already registered for all of my classes for the next semester. And I'm in 3 dance classes for the next semester. I don't know how those dance professors are going to kind of, because I haven't had any of the professors I would be having next semester before, so I don't even know like what they would be thinking, like how they would move forward with things.
Right.
But my school has already like sent us an email that said like as of right now, like we have like the green light, like we can reopen. So they're still like very hopeful that we will be able to be open in the fall. But I have had like a lot of friends that have been saying that if, you know, like UVM isn't open in the fall, then they might just like take a semester off and come back whenever the school does reopen. I haven't thought too much about what I personally might do, but there's just something about being in the actual space, especially when, like Sam was saying, like how like certain majors, like it really is important. Like if you're like out and doing things and like being there in person, changes a lot. And so I don't know if I haven't thought about it too much because I've been like trying to like put it off or just like try and like convince myself like, okay, like everything will be fine. Like we'll be back in the fall. Like the university sent an email. But I do think it's something that all students kind of need to think about. Like, what am I going to do if school doesn't happen in the fall? Because like I haven't even like really thought about it for myself.
Yeah. And, you know, it reminds me of you saying that, Jordan, and any chance I get, because so much ties into my recent obsession with all things Stoicism. And there's a saying of premeditatio malorum, and essentially it's like preparing for the worst of what could happen. But the reason is not to doom and gloom and obsess over it. It's to truly prepare yourself for that worst case scenario. So that way, if it ever comes, you already have a game plan, which sets you ahead of so many people, right? No one could have prepared for, well, I say that, and I know, you know, there were Netflix specials about this and people have predicted something like this happening. Bill Gates, I think, predicted this pretty accurately on some level, pandemic happening. But for the most part, people aren't able to accurately predict a pandemic. But when you have certain information, like we are in a pandemic, and then to Jen's question of, hey, what's going to happen if school doesn't go back? What I would say is spend a little time, and the best way to do it is writing, but just run yourself through that scenario, right? So like, hey, if school doesn't come back, I'm planning to do this. I'm probably going to feel this way. And then if that happens, you already have something to fall back on, because it's the people who aren't prepared where they they kind of start flailing around and become really, really emotionally intense. And when we're super emotionally intense is when we make our worst decisions. And so just anyway, I wanted to throw that out there. And then Gabe, I'm curious if you want to jump in on that one as well.
Yeah, I'm kind of in a similar boat as Jordan. I'm not really sure what I'm gonna do. I'm in a bit of a tricky situation because me and my friends, we put down money on a house outside of campus, and the realtor isn't letting us out of the lease, so we have to move in there in the fall. And then it's like, do you risk going out and trying to look? I really don't want to pay for online classes. So it's like I'd have to risk, hoping to find a job for a semester or for, however long this lasts. Or, because if I don't have a job, I'm just going to be sitting at a house in Boston if I don't take online classes, or take the online classes, which I haven't been doing well with. So I'm not really sure what I'm going to do. I know that like BU, MIT, and Harvard have all been talking and are seriously considering going online for the fall. So I'm a little worried that they will, but I just hope that they won't. So
I find it interesting, right, that's still the challenge. So one, the uncertainty has been a constant theme through everything, right? That is the underlying fear that exacerbates everyone, is uncertainty. And I love Joe's perspective on how you look at things. And Gina, you said something important, and that was that that you're in a different place than someone else. So you're expressing gratitude that you're able to, while most people are going to university for that experience, and people are going to go to maybe a 2-year college to save money if they have to, right? But you're saying, I'm fortunate. You're acknowledging gratitude there. But I will say to all of you collectively is this. It seems like you guys are all goal oriented, and you have like a timeline, and I have to check the box here, A, B, C, and D, to get to where I want to be. And all I can offer you as an older guy with some advice is this collectively, is that life isn't linear, and it's never going to be. All right. So even if it involves you taking a semester off, or your school closes, or you got to go to school you didn't want to, or you got to get a job you weren't planning for, that's life. And what you can learn from that experience is going to be valuable in your life course. So look at everything, and try to not put a positive spin on it, but take what you can from that experience and use it to go to your next goal. Don't see that as a barrier or a challenge. Well, actually, use it as a challenge, but you work through it. There's a wealth of knowledge in that. Every hardship refines you if you let it. If you look at it that way, I believe that you'll prosper. And that goes back to the teachings that Joe's talking about, right, in Stoicism, because we don't know what's going to happen, right? That question looms. You guys are thinking about it. You have some friends that aren't, like, oh, whatever. And I do argue that perspective, like, whatever happens, is okay for some, but when it happens, they're going to be like, oh, crap, I didn't plan for that to happen, and now I'm here. But you guys are all thinkers and planning for that. So I just wanted to give you that piece, even if it doesn't work out that way. That doesn't mean that you're not on your way to your goals still, right? Life is not linear. And it looks like Toby's got a question, Joe?
Yeah. Yeah, and real quick before we jump on this, Toby, thanks for asking it. But I'm reminded, Jesse, when you're talking about that, it's important to, one, understand what perspective is. And it's not just this word, but perspective, essentially, obviously, it's the lens in which we see life. But understand that when you squeeze an orange, you're going to get orange juice. Pressure is really what brings out the truth of people. And so I'm super confident with you four, to Jesse's point, to piggyback on that, with your ability to not just survive something like this, but to thrive through it, because of how really tuned in and acutely aware and insightful that you all are. And so remember, but perspective is not just of the way in which we see the world. It's that, in fact, I wrote this down because I loved it. And it says that we don't see things as they are, we see things as we are. And that's truly what perspective is. That's why not everyone has the same perspective, because it's not based on reality, it's based on our truth. And so that's why some people have different mindsets and perspectives on life. So to Toby's question here, are there people in your lives who are giving you a sense of comfort or reassurance? And anyone can jump on this one. So anyone that's giving you some comfort and reassurance.
I think that my parents mainly have been very comforting and very reassuring, mainly because they've, been saying like it's okay to feel upset about this whole situation. They're not saying like, oh, don't. It's this thing of, I feel that a lot of people might be thinking like, oh, just like think positively, like be optimistic, XYZ, but they're saying like it's okay if you don't have like constant optimism. That's fine. If you just want to like be upset for a bit, like it's completely understandable. Like a lot of people are upset, and I think it's important to remember that like everyone is allowed to be upset when they do feel upset.
That's interesting. I'm reminded by something that Simon Sinek says, and he talks about optimism. He talks about hope. And sometimes, people kind of confuse optimism with just, this belief that no matter what, things are going to be good. And you just know it. And even when things are really bad. But with hope there's a recognition that things are bad, but you have a fundamental faith that things will get better or there's something else there. So and in hope, right, it's okay to experience the negative emotions involved with this, right? It's okay to feel sad or feel mourning, whatever. But that hope comes from the underlying belief and faith that things will get better. So I'm glad that they're letting you experience that, because you should be. We all are.
I would say that my grandparents are, and not because of necessarily that they're necessarily doing anything different, and I think that's the reason why. So my grandparents lived down the street from me, and they were basically like my second set of parents my whole life. And when I would be home, I would go down to visit them basically every day, and I've still been doing that, sometimes just to go do homework. And it's been nice, like they're homebodies, especially my grandma, like she never goes anywhere. Like her life hasn't really changed at all with social distancing because she doesn't go anywhere anyway. But it's like nice to go down there, and like she's still trying to like make me cinnamon toast, and my grandpa's still listening to talk radio at like 1,000 decibels while I'm trying to like do reading. So like just the fact that like nothing has changed with them, and like my relationship with them is still the same, and if I was home I would still be going to see them every day, like that's like a nice sense of normalcy. So like they've always been a nice escape, and so they still are continuing to be.
That's awesome, Gina. Thank you. Gabe?
Sorry. Yeah, I think for me, honestly, and not anybody in my life, but I think Andrew Cuomo has been the only person that's been like giving me some sense of comfort and reassurance. Just because the best thing that I've heard in the past 6 weeks is he gave a really, it played like on the air as a commercial, but he gave like a really rousing and passionate speech to New Yorkers, comforting them and saying that we just have to come together and be okay. And that was honestly like the best thing I've heard in 6 weeks, and the most comforting and reassuring thing. I recommend anybody, if you're from New York, to look up that speech. It was really nice and did give me a sense of comfort. But I don't know, everybody else in my life has been kind of panicking. So Andrew Cuomo, I'll go with.
I love it, Gabe. I love it. Sam?
With me, I would say it's like my whole family. Not because they're like necessarily trying to be comforting or reassuring, but just like they're just like the same. Like my dad, like currently doesn't have a job, and so like he's just running around frantically, like trying to find projects and things to do to like take his mind off of like not have anything to do. So like he's like making me like power wash the deck and just like random stuff around the house. So like I guess that is just like we can still do things, like we can still do normal things, we can still do productive things, like and like having like that sense of like normalcy is good. Like even though I can't go out and see my friends, I can still like like put my mind, like work and like do something.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I appreciate the question from Toby, because again, I think this is one of the significant pieces of having a gratitude practice, which it sounds like you all, whether it's informal or formal, have on some level. And so I have a gratitude journal I do every morning, but it always points back to people, right? And it points to people that we have relationships with. And so it really forces us in times like these of uncertainty to find the ones that we are grateful for, because they do help us get through situations, even if it is something unconventional, like an Andrew Cuomo, which I love that Gabe said. And real quick, I think one of the things we need to understand too about anything that creates an emotion with us is our emotions are the language of the subconscious. And so what that means is that, we tend to, whatever we feel something, we don't spend enough time reflecting on why that feeling's there. We tend to deflect, avoid, get away from it, numb out, do something to make it go away. But if we understand that emotions are the language of our subconscious, it's something is trying to be communicated to us. And if we can get to a place where we understand that, we have some really, really incredible breakthroughs. And Toby's saying that you all are giving her comfort and reassurance, which is a beautiful thing, because Toby's just a wonderful human being. For those of you that know her or don't know her, she lights up my life for sure. So anyway.
And that's what we want to do with this, right? That's the whole purpose of why we're doing this. So thank you guys for adding that, because anybody that watches this, that's what we're looking for. Going back, right, you guys all found comforts in different ways, either through inspiring leaders in government or in personal terms in your family. And I'm reminded, I think this specifically goes to both Sam and Gina, those moments, and I know you guys are young and you have your whole lives to look forward to, those moments are going to be memories that are really important later. And, life's tough and things happen, and those memories are super valuable. And I find it awesome that people so young are finding comfort in those memories and being around these individuals and watching them experience this, and you experience it with them. That's going to be super valuable, because the most valuable resource we have is time, and we don't get much more of it, if at all, excuse me. So really, really good perspectives there. That was a great question from Toby.
Yeah, and Jesse, because we're right at about 45-ish minutes, let's close out and be mindful of their time so they can get back to their studies. But one of the things too, that just for the four of you and for anyone that you talk to, because one of the words that we're hearing swirling around so much is anxiety. And something that when you're talking to your friends, as you're talking to your sphere of influence, remind them that anxiety is fear of a made up future. And what that means is that people are having this anticipatory angst about something that has yet to happen. And again, if they just simply write out what if, right? And there's two mindsets. There's a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. But if people were to go down those tracks of like, what if school doesn't open in the fall? Okay, so that's a fixed mindset. If we lock in on that, a growth mindset of what if school doesn't open in the fall, it'll finally give me the opportunity to do this thing I wanted to pursue, or to start this project I wanted to do, or whatever it is. So understand the difference between those two. But so many people's anxiety is based on a made up future of something that's never happened. And so if you didn't know that or realize that, it's just a great thing that you can pass on to your circle of friends and help them get through these times. Because I imagine there's people in your lives, in your worlds, that look at you just because of how brilliant you all are. So anyway, Jesse, you want to get them closed out here with their takeaways?
Absolutely. So just to Joe's point, right? We're not saying that, people experiencing anxiety isn't real. We're just explaining that the perspective can influence these things and make things better for you. So that's very, very important. And it sounds like you guys have a good grip on your own insight and awareness to yourselves. But if you can pass on to anyone, your friends that are experiencing those fears, and they're letting their mind race with fear to things that, they can't control and may never even happen, that might be some knowledge to part with him. And on that, if you guys could leave one takeaway you want our audience to know, anything you want to say or share, now's your opportunity. Give us one takeaway that you want people listening to have from your perspective, from your lives, from your generation, from your experience. And I'll put Sam on the spot first.
Sure. So for me, I've been taking a lot of solace in getting outside and going on walks. So if you have like the capabilities to do that, I would suggest it.
Love it. Environment. Excellent. Jordan.
Yeah, just I think what's really been, helping me a lot and something that people really should remember is just take care of those around you. Like it's like small gestures can like really go a long way, like making sure like people that you know are feeling okay, doing okay, making sure that you're doing okay. Yeah, like that can really go a long way.
Absolutely. Service to others, kindness to others really does help us feel better. Absolutely. Gabe?
I really agree with Jordan. I think that if everybody just, maybe take some time out of their day to just reach out to like a friend they haven't talked to in a while, or a family member they haven't talked to in a while, and just check in and say hello, I think that goes a long way.
Social connection. We're hitting all the boxes. It feels like, I think the audience is going to think we planned this and made you guys all say this, like we gave you scripts, because you guys are taking pages out of our playbook without us asking you to. Excellent. Gina, give us a home run. Come on.
I don't know if this is going to be a home run, but something that a group of my friends at school started doing is writing letters to each other. And so every person was assigned like a secret admirer. And so you didn't know who was writing to letters to you, and like the person who you were writing to didn't know that you had them. But it doesn't have to be like that. But since all of our communication now is basically completely digital, it has been like brought me so much joy to get a letter in the mail. Like I think mail is so like happy when you get like a letter. So like just like finding like new ways, even if it's not like writing a letter, to like connect with other people, even if that's not just like through a screen.
Fantastic. And you end with social connection, finding ways to connect. I think Joe has coined the term, right? Don't spread the infection, spread the connection. So you guys could have taught our classes for us all collectively. We couldn't ask for a better outcome. Joe, any takeaways you want to give before we say goodbye?
No, just thank you, Sam, Jordan, Gabe, Gene. I really appreciate you guys taking time out of your Saturday to do this and just share it with your people so they can watch it. I think there were some great nuggets in here. Again, we want to spread connection, not the infection. And social distancing is physical distancing. We need to keep connection alive, even if it is through written letters. I love that, Gina. And finally, just amor fati, which is my final takeaway for all of you. And I love y'all. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Great knowing you guys. Thanks for your time. Good luck, and keep up the good work. Take care, guys.
Thank you for having me.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.